My story is my story. Just being a black man in America, I have a certain viewpoint on photography that other races can't necessarily relate to. My name is Jarrod Anderson. I'm 28 years old. I'm from Sanford, Florida, small city outside Orlando, but I currently live in Brooklyn, New York, and I am a fashion photographer. Prolific is where we're at right now. It's my home-based studio. This is where I shoot in Brooklyn, New York. It's me and my boy Sakif. He's the original founder, whatever, and I joined the team like a couple months ago just trying to help him out. It's just a creative space as a studio. We do photography work here, videography work here. And yeah, it's just a spot for creatives to create. Just wanted to have our own spot where we can be ourselves. It's real lax, real chill. It's kind of like a community, a family environment. My childhood was cool. My mom and dad are separated, so I was living in Florida and living in New York for a period of time, just going back and forth, floating back and forth. After 9/11 happened, my mom moved to Atlanta, and so I did a little bit of my middle school years in Atlanta. I moved to Florida in high school, and that's why I claimed Florida, because that's where I did like my high school, my college stint. So that's like my more prominent years, you feel me? I feel like I got a good mix of all aspects of life, growing up in the South and then growing up in the city. I seen like the slow part of life, and I seen like the fast-paced part of life as well. So it was a good experience just to be able to see all of that. I didn't come into photography like looking to be a photographer or anything like that. When I first got started with photography, it was more so just like a way to make ends meet. I fell in love with photography afterwards, just after I actually learned what it meant to be a photographer and like the impact of telling the stories and stuff like that. I moved here, and honestly, I was just, like I said earlier, just talking to friends, like trying to figure out ways that I could like make some side money. And I used to throw day parties back in Tampa and happened to buy a camera for the company, but I never got to use it. So it was just kind of collecting dust. And so when I moved to New York, I brought the camera with me, and a friend mentioned like photography as like a way to do some money. And so at first it was just like me, my thought process was like, I'll just go on Craigslist and I'll go in and be like, hey, if you need some headshots, I'll take your headshots for LinkedIn for like 50 bucks, whatever. But then, like I said, I fell in love with actually the art of photography and the art of telling stories and creating those type of scenes and stuff like that. I actually fell in love with it, and that's when I started creating my own stories and actually try to venture out and do my own thing. One of the first stories that I've ever created with photography was probably Tranquil. That's something super old. I shot that back in like 2016. And that was my first time creative directing and like putting together my whole shoot from start to finish, whatever, like picking clothes for my models and stuff like that. And that was a pretty dope shoot. We had like 7 or 8 models we shot outside by Soho area at this park. And those photos got a lot of love. It was inspired by Solange. She had just dropped Seat at the Table at the time, whatever. So it was like a real nudish colored theme. So it was like pinks and greens and browns, and with the black skin, it really hit. And so that was like one of my first visual stories that I called them. And so that's when people started to really take me serious as a photographer, you feel me? Because before I was just like taking like landscape photos and like just photos of buildings, just random stuff, whatever, just try to get better. But that, like I said, that was my first time actually putting together my own shoot. And so from then on, it was just kind of like people just showing me love and encouraged me to keep going. So that's kind of like what motivated me to keep doing what I was doing. I mean, I get inspired from just all aspects of like all types of art, not just photographers. Some photographers that I just love from jump is my boy Mark. We kind of got it started together. So always inspired to see what he's doing, what he's creating. And my boy Josh, he's doing great things. I just try to get experience, and I don't like try to force my creations. I kind of take it all in, and then when I feel like creating, I just put out whatever life has given me as inspiration. I just kind of put it out in my work. My goal is to constantly just capture all the moments in between being black, the pain, the beauty, like everything in between, like the good, the bad, and just try to highlight us and show our stories and tell our stories, you feel me? That's just always been something that just felt natural to me. I'm big on just doing what feels natural. I feel like I get a lot of love and support and showcased a lot. And honestly and truly, I'm not doing nothing crazy. I'm just going with the flow and just whatever feels natural to me. I always try to stick to that. And so, like I said, even my Tranquil shoot, all my shoots, everything that people give me the most love for, stuff like that, is just something that just came to me, you feel me? Just telling the stories. It didn't feel forced. It was, like I said, I'm not the guy to go out there and just create, just create on impulse. Growing up, I feel like there was like a lot of false narrative in the media and the stuff that I saw, you feel me? I grew up in the South, and so a lot of the imagery and music and stuff that I saw, or visuals I saw, was just athletes or over-sexualized, or just like, you feel me, just athletes, rappers, just music videos, stuff like that. But I knew there was more to it, you feel me? My mom was a businesswoman, my dad was an engineer, my stepmom was a lawyer, you feel me? So I knew there was more to it than what they was just showing me, whatever. So just always knowing that I was never seeing all there was. Not to say that's not part of our story, but that's not all the story that is to being Black, you feel me? So just capturing that has just always been my goal, and just all of it, all of it. I feel like a lot of my work is leaning towards the high fashion editorial realm. I didn't grow up reading Vogue magazine like that, but I never really saw like high fashion models like Tyra Banks and Naomi, you feel me, like the main ones, but I never like grew up seeing it all the time. So I just try to always capture like my models wearing like elegant dresses and super fire suits and just stuff that you wouldn't never normally see those models in, you feel me? A lot of Black joy, a lot of Black love, a lot of Black royalty, you feel me? A lot of Black wealth. I feel like my images capture special moments that you might not necessarily see in a 3D image or whatever other medium, just because a lot of my photos rely on emotion and just that storytelling, just to be able to feel yourself in those scenes. You don't really get the same thing with motion. I just feel like it gives you the ability to create your own narrative, but still kind of get like placed in the middle of a scene, you feel me? Like I said, I grew up reading a lot of books, so it's kind of like opening up a book in the middle of a chapter and kind of getting a gist of it, not really knowing what the beginning is, but getting a gist, and then just kind of like running with it and having your own narrative, whatever. So it just kind of gives you a way to just toss yourself in there. But I try to always capture some type of emotion or some type of feeling in my photos. So my advice for people that's trying to get into photography would be just kind of like figure out what you like to shoot, figure out what is, like I said, true to you. I try to remain true to me at all times. Don't try to force things, figure out what feels natural to you, what do you enjoy shooting, what causes you the less stress, and what brings you the most passion, you feel me? Then also just kind of like just see what's out there, look for inspiration everywhere, read a lot, look on YouTube a lot. That's what I was doing, just seeing what was out there, see what people was creating, learn the lighting techniques, and just learn about scenarios and stuff like that. So that'd be my advice for people trying to get into the art of photography, you feel me? Something that I realized is that often a lot of creators and creatives are kind of only focused on the art side, and they let the art distract them from the business side of things. So I read a book a couple months ago called The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. It's a really good book that I suggest all creatives read. It just talks about why businesses thrive and why businesses fail. And like I said, a lot of times I feel like creators are letting their ego get the best of them. And so just understanding like the logistics of business, the operational sides, the financial sides, like the cash flow things, is something that's very important, especially when you're an entrepreneur and living in a pandemic. You feel me? Knowing where your money's going and knowing how it's flowing is a very big thing that creatives, I feel like, don't really do a great job on doing. And so just learn, like I said, the full scope of running a business, and not just your part of the operational part of whatever art it is you create, whether it be photography or videography or whatever it is that you do, but just learning the full scope of running a business. So that's my advice for creators, is just learning all components and not just the operational components that you do mainly.